people working. This is how Kenyans are working hard every day. And you bang on time for the Leadership Forum this morning, where we'll be training our focus on balancing the wheel of life. Balancing the wheel of life. You know, sometimes life can really get out of kilter and you wonder, what am I really living for? Is this for my work or is this for my family? And how do I get that equilibrium? And how can I balance this moving forward? These are probing questions that sometimes we wonder, how do we actually get that balance act in our life? So we'll be training our focus today on the Leadership Forum on balancing the wheel of life. Already you can see with me here is Dr. Tim Mwangi. Good to see you, sir. Up and Dali, 6 on the nose. Thank you very much, sir. You're on time and good to see you. I'll be marking you momentarily. But balancing the wheel of life, that is work-life balance, it's a popular catchphrase and it sounds good, reasonable even. But is it what we should really strive for? Does it even exist? On one side, your career, performance, business, and responsibility. On the other, your passions, family, health, friendship, and happiness. The middle is like a war zone, not to be crossed. But here's the thing. Work affects our lives, and our lives affect our work. The two sides converge, and when you try to balance the two, you often feel like a failure. Focusing on work makes you feel like a bad friend, partner, or even parent. And on the other hand, focusing on the family and hobbies makes you feel like a disappointment to your work or your work team or business. There is little more frustrating than an ideal that you feel will never achieve. So this is what we seek to decipher this morning. How do we strike that particular balance on work, life, relationship? Where do you get the balancing act? So we'll be joined much later by our panelist so that we can actually continue with this particular discussion much later in the course of the program. But for now, the good, the bad, and the ugly in our dailies this morning. We'll do it from my laptop. My touchscreen is a bit acting up. So this is what is headlining the front page of the Daily Nation this morning. Dying giant, not in fight for survival. Dying giant, not in fight for survival, right? This is what is on the front page of the Daily Nation this morning. It's just coming up momentarily on your screen, right? So it'll be a bit slower, but we'll get there. At least to get you to see all the dailies this morning as far as our dailies are concerned. So dying night, well, of course, we know the round that has been on as far as NAT and the TSC is concerned. Teachers Union officials defy court order in bid to kick Sosion out of office. That is what we have as a flagger there. Unprecedented crisis. Yesterday's chaos signaled a most ignominious disintegration of the 62-year-old union that has generally remained intact. Commanded unwavering support from its 200,000 members and gained respect from the Teachers Service Commission. That is what we have on page 4 of the Daily Nation this morning. And if my director Mike may just put up multi-view for me at least, so that I can try and move on swiftly with this. So also the front page of the Daily Nation still, we have drug will make you a zombie. This is on page 8 of the Daily Nation this morning. In the US, Johnson & Johnson. Let me try and, well, it went to page 2. I wanted to just zoom out for you to see what it is like here. I'll show you on a single page there. You go back to page 1 and try and zoom in there. There you go. Drug will make you a zombie. In the US, Johnson & Johnson has been slapped with, get this, $572 million fine for fueling addiction to opioids, but we bought it easily in Kenyan pharmacies. So you can follow this story inside the Daily Nation to see actually how or what you bought from the pharmacies as far as the products from Johnson & Johnson is concerned. Tale of missing tycoon and a bunch of lies. Dutch tycoon's wife and 2 workers in custody as police unravel web of lies. That is also the front page of the Daily Nation. The story continues on page 6 of the Daily Nation this morning. Kenyans staring at paralysis in counties. Imagine life without the vital health and other social services offered by counties. Road maintenance and waste disposal. This could become a reality if governors make good of their threats to shut down operations in counties from next month if the stalemate over the distribution of revenue persists. You can follow this story on page 9 of the Daily Nation this morning. And of course, you can see a standalone picture, not really a standalone picture, but a related picture of how the protests were there yesterday. The Kenya National Union of Teachers Nairobi branch chairman Robert Karume here speaking outside the union's headquarters, where some officials tried to kick out Secretary General Wilson Sossion. Also, a man is arrested in the melee. You can see that is how it went down yesterday. This is what we have on the front page of the Daily Nation. Let's just move on and see what we have on the front page of the Standard as well. And this is what you're waking up to on the front page of the Standard this morning. A quick look, a bit slower, but we'll get there. Just a tender reminder on what we're discussing this morning as well on the Leadership Forum. I teased out that is balancing the wheel of life. MP's secret card to stop Punguza Mizigo is what we have as a splash today. MP's secret card to stop Punguza Mizigo bill. Game plan. Plotting to exploit a loophole in the constitution that will see them freeze attempt to reduce their numbers to 147 from the current 146. This is what you're waking up to on the front page of the Standard this morning. Also still on the front page of the Standard, chaos as Nat takes on Sossion. This is still on the front page of the Standard. Chaos as Nat takes on Sossion is another story that you want to follow also inside the Standard this morning. And this is a developing story, and of course we shall be giving you also details of this much later in the day as well. Also, stormy NCCK meeting settles leadership row is another story that you want to follow inside the Standard this morning. We know the story, how it has been panning out as far as the leadership row is concerned. And the story, you can follow it also inside the Standard as well on page 6. Still on the front page of the Standard, Waititu steps up fight against office ban is another story there you can follow inside the Standard this morning. And also on the front page of the Star, this is what you're waking up to on the front page of the Star. Sex scandal rocks Prophet Awards Church. That is what we have on the front page of the Star this morning. Sex scandal rocks Prophet Awards Church. It says church lawyer Okongo Omogeni confirms bishop removed unholy. This is what the flagger is reading here. Church lawyer Okongo Omogeni confirms bishop removed. Women faithful give horrifying accounts of how Bishop Joseph Gitonga, Awar's long-term personal assistant, was sexually abusing them. And you can follow the story on page 4 and 5 of the Star this morning. Also, troubled Nat boss Sossion survives ouster. Embattled Kenya National Union of Teachers Secretary General Wilson Sossion yesterday escaped a plot to remove him from office when a section of the union's top leaders met in Nairobi. Those familiar with the development say a section of the union's National Executive Council met in Nairobi Hotel yesterday. This story continues on page 2 of the Star this morning. Woman walks 45 kilometers, dumps twins in church after her partner denied fathering her twins. A Migori woman abandoned them in a church in Awendo when they were just 6 months old. Then she disappeared. Now she wants them back from an orphanage in Rongo. The twins, a boy and a girl, are about 1 year and 8 months old. You can follow the story on page 3 of the Star this morning. Also, there is a proposed law here. Now government targets betting ads and promos. Tough economic times awaits the media if the gaming regulator succeeds in its bid to regulate all betting advertisements. The Betting Licensing and Control Board has come up with tough laws with a view to restricting advertisements. You can follow the story on page 7 of the Star this morning. Let me try and pick up the People Daily for you quickly. We're going to see also what is on the front page of the People Daily. This is what you're waking up to on the front page of the People. Drama as the ejected. Drama as Defense Session ejected. End of the road? That is a question. Teachers Union, top organ, votes to send beleaguered Secretary General home and install his deputy as acting boss, but abrasive trade unionists dismisses move as anality. That is a story you can follow on page 4 of the People Daily this morning. Why it's do or die for ODM in Kibra by-election race after suffering humiliating defeats in Ugenya and Embakasi South mini polls. The Raila-led party is leaving nothing to chance. This is a story that you want to follow on page 6 of today's People Daily. Governors threaten to stall operations in the counties. They want stalemate over the division of revenue urgently resolved. That is a story that is tucked away on page 2 of the People Daily. Missing tycoon's wife now arrested. You can follow this story also on page 7 of the People Daily this morning. A quick look on what we have on the front page of Taifa Leo. This is what you're waking up to on the front page of Taifa Leo. Mariga atetemesha ODM kieleweke. Jubilee ya Uhuru yaitaka mgombeaji maarufu Chungwa laogopa ushawishi na wa mwana soka. That is what the flagger reads here on the front page of the Taifa Leo this morning. Also, magavana kusimamisha huduma za kaunti zote 47. The story continues on page 2 of Taifa Leo. There is a standalone picture here. Kinaya serikali kutumia mabilioni kutoa misaada badala ya kuzalisha chakula. This is a story that you can follow also inside the Taifa Leo this morning. Also, moja ameminiwa risasi Mombasa. The story continues on page 2 of Taifa Leo this morning. Let's move on and we see what we have on the front page of the Business Daily. And this is what you're waking up to on the front page of the Business Daily this morning. Safaricom's market value beats all other NSE firms. Telecommunications firms rise to market capitalization of 1.13 trillion shillings exceeds the valuation of all the other 62 companies that are listed on the Nairobi bourse. You can follow the story on page 4 of Business Daily this morning. Safaricom's dominance of the Nairobi Securities Exchange has hit a new peak after the telecommunications firm's market valuation exceeded, 50% of the 2.22 trillion shillings stock market. Did I say there? This story continues on page 4 of the Business Daily this morning. New online matatu gets 1.5 billion shillings funding for Nairobi. Let me just tell you about it. A new online hailing matatu operator, that is SWVL, has secured 1.5 billion shillings funding for finance an aggressive route expansion plan in Nairobi. The startup, which was founded by Egyptian operators and is already operational on multiple Nairobi routes, has set a target to grow its network to 500 routes served by 1,000 buses. The app-based public service transport operator that launched in Nairobi basis 7 months ago has already signed up 150 buses on 100 city routes. Follow the story on page 4 of the Business Daily this morning. Also, banks gain most in 1,000 shillings notes switch. It says here that commercial banks are emerging as the biggest beneficiaries of the switch to new 1,000 shillings notes, as the rush to return the old currency has handed them cheap deposits for onward lending to borrowers. The banks, which gained 2 billion shillings in deposits in June alone, the first month of demonetization of the old currency, have maintained their preference for lending to the Treasury starving households and businesses of long. Story continues on page 4 of the Business Daily, and we can see here a standalone picture, anti-Brexit demo. This was happening in London. Anti-Brexit demonstrators protest outside Downing Street yesterday. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson sparked fury on Wednesday among pro-Europeans and MPs opposed to a no-deal Brexit by forcing the suspension of Parliament weeks before Britain's EU departure date. This story continues on page 16 and 17 of the Business Daily this morning. On the ticker this morning, controversial petroleum levy falls 3 billion shillings. The taxman collected 14.6 billion shillings from the controversial levy on petroleum products, missing the target by almost 3 billion shillings. This is what is on the front page of the Business Daily, or on the ticker. You can follow the story on page 7. Today's digit is 2.85 trillion shillings. This is Treasury bills account for 33.86% of domestic government debt, which stood at 2.85 trillion shillings on August the 16th. The story continues on page 19 of the Business Daily. Car importers face delays in KRA hitch is another story that you want to follow. Thousands of second-hand cars could be stuck longer at the Mombasa port after implementation hitches rocked the adoption of the newly rolled out Integrated Customs Management System, that is ICMS. You can follow the story on page 5 of the Business Daily. Drought to get worse this year. New reports by the National Drought Management Authority projects that drought and food scarcity in Kenya will worsen in 2019 unless adequate mitigation measures are taken by both levels of government and other actors. You can follow this story on page 12 of the Business Daily this morning. Let's cross borders now. We head to Uganda and Tanzania and Rwanda. See what is happening across the borders there. Ex-African leaders sound natural resources alarm. Six former African presidents call for wise management of the continent's natural resources, which are depleting at an alarming rate, and say education is needed among communities and political leaders to make the issue a priority. Follow this story on page 2 of The Citizen this morning. Also, government, no more bans on food exports. This story continues on page 2 of The Citizen. Japanese PM tells Africa to avoid drowning in debt. Right, it says here. Right, the story continues on page 18. If partner countries are deeply in debt, it interferes with everyone's effort to enter the market. Mr. Shinzo Abe said as he introduced financing and insurance schemes by Japan's government-backed institutions aimed at reducing risks to business and public coffers. The story continues on page 18 of The Citizen. You can see a related picture here. Not really, but this is a standalone picture. This is President John Pombe Magufuli addressing the African Leadership Forum 2019 in Dar es Salaam yesterday. Also seated facing the camera from the left, former Madagascan president, that is Harry. Also we have former Nigerian head of state, that is Obasanjo, and retired President Benjamin Mkapa, former South African President Thabo Mbeki, and Tanzanian businessman Ali Mafuruki. That's how it went in Dar es Salaam yesterday. Follow the story inside The Citizen today. Let's see what is on the front page of Mwananchi, the Swahili version of The Citizen in Tanzania. This is Mwana Sporty. Right, seems I don't have the Mwananchi for you this morning, but we can go to Rwanda and see what is on the front page of the New Times. And this is what you're waking up to this morning on the front page of the New Times in Rwanda. Indian farm to invest up to $30 million in Rwanda tea. That is what we have as a splash today. And it says here, Luxmi Tea has announced it will invest between $28 million and $30 million in Rwanda over the next 10 years, making it the first Indian farm to set up a greenfield project in tea processing in the country. This story continues on page 16 of the New Times today. And we can see here Kagame Shinzo Abe hold bilateral talks. President Kagame and Prime Minister Shinzo Abe of Japan in a group photo with members of the Rwandan delegation who were in Japan for the Tokyo International Conference on African Development, that is TICAD 7. The two leaders held a bilateral meeting on the margins of the conference where they discussed different issues of mutual interest. You can follow the story inside the New Times this morning. Rush to upgrade Kigali roads ahead of Chogum. That is a story that you can follow on page 2 of the New Times in Rwanda this morning. Have you picked your copy of the East African? I will always remind you that today is your final day anyway. If you want to understand what the region is all about, let's see if we have it here. The East African for us this morning. Where is the East African, surely? I try and mount it from a laptop. But in the meantime, I've not shown you what is happening in Uganda. And this is what you're waking up to on the front page of the Daily Monitor in Uganda. I'll stand for truth, justice. This is what Kazimba is saying. From an interview there, the Church of Uganda Archbishop-elect says he will attract youth through soccer, take gospel to households, and will fight for justice. That is what we have on the front page of the Daily Monitor this morning. Also still, we have Talos 3 trillion shilling sale deal collapsing. Find all the story on page 2 of the Daily Monitor. If you're waking up in Uganda this morning, also still there, we can see a standalone picture here. A flight to Mogadishu returns with 33 passengers. That is what we have on the front page of the Daily Monitors, and we can see passengers disembarking from Uganda Airlines plane at Entebbe International Airport after it arrived from Mogadishu, Somalia yesterday. The return flight from the war-torn country had 33 passengers on board. The airline's commercial director, Ms. Jennifer Bamuturaki, said there will be 4 direct flights every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday and Sunday to Mogadishu, but will increase to 6 times a week when the remaining 2, that is Charlie, Romeo, Julie 900 Bombardier jets, arrive mid-next month. You can follow the story inside the Daily Monitor as well. Also, government confirms new Ebola case in Kisese. The Ministry of Health has confirmed another Ebola case in Kasese district. According to a statement issued last evening, a 9-year-old girl, a DR Congo national, entered the country with her mother seeking medical attention. The child was identified by the point of entry screening team with the following symptoms: high fever, body weakness, rash and unexplained mouth bleeding. She was subsequently isolated and taken to Bweram Hospital Ebola treatment. That is a statement that came from the Ministry of Health in Uganda. You can follow the story also inside the Daily Monitor as well. I will try and just grab a copy of the East African quickly. If you've not seen what is on the front page of East African this week, this is how it looks. United Nations Security Council seat hidden hand of Somalia in Djibouti's flip-flop. Kenya's new course, maritime dispute intrigues continue as Nairobi is set to intensify shuttle diplomacy. That is what we have on the front page of the East African this week. Also, still on the front page of East African, shaky Rwanda-Uganda deal is another story that you need to follow. And it's tucked away on page 4 and 5 of the East African. Also, low IQ is the water. Stupid. Let me try and zoom in so that I can read clearly. It says, low IQ, it's in the water, stupid. Study shows how fluoride, that is fluoride, I should say, in the tap affects your child's intellect, not chlorine. Study shows how fluoride in the tap affects your child's intellect. So is that cognitive development of your boy or child? Is it getting adversely affected by that particular chemical? And that story continues on page 26 and 27 of the East African. Also, chop is to chop its business in East Africa is another story you can follow. No respite for Uganda's public listing drought. That is a story that you can follow also on the front page of the East African. Right. I want to show you the editorial cartoons lastly. And this is what is on the front page. Not really the front page, but the editorial cartoon inside the People Daily, according to Stano. It's about nuts. And you can see the trunk is trying actually to dump off Susion, who's hanging by the fingernails. And we're eagerly waiting to see how this will pan out. They say he's no longer a teacher. That is what they've drawn inside the People Daily today. Also, we do have the Standard as well. This is what Gado has drawn. And it's all about Ezekiel Mutua and KFCB. And it says here, with census done, every home will have to install Me to ensure that we monitor what our children watch. Of course, it's been very feisty fighting of this dirty content on our social media, also on TV as well. And this is what Gado has captured for us. And then the small round is saying, and you'll have to pay for it. That is inside the Standard today. I guess that's it. We're missing nothing. Make sure you grab a copy or a copy of a Daily Nation, a copy of a paper that really floats your boat for these riveting stories as well. We're missing one from the Daily Nation. I didn't get the soft copy of it, but grab a copy of the Daily Nation. This is how it looks this morning, or the Business Daily. This is your splash this morning. Right, we want to buckle down to a discussion with our panelists this morning, and it's all about balancing the wheel of life. Balancing the wheel of life. And we know that work-life balance, it's a popular catchphrase, and it sounds good, reasonable. But is it what we should really strive for? Does it even exist? On one side, your career, performance, business, and responsibility. On the other, your passions, family, health, friendship, and happiness. The middle is like a war zone not to be crossed. But here's the thing. Work affects our lives, and our lives affect our work. The two sides converge, and when you try to balance the two, you often feel like a failure. Focusing on work makes you feel like a bad friend, partner, or a parent. Focusing on family and hobbies like a disappointment to your work team or business. Now, there is little more frustrating. There's nothing more frustrating than an ideal that you feel you will never achieve. Never achieve. It seems like a mirage. But how can we try and get this particular balance, right? They say that life is not an exact science. It zigs and zags, it flops, it is not linear. How do we then navigate this particular very ticklish balancing act so that at least we have an equilibrium in all that we do? I want to introduce our panelists who are already here. If you joined us at the top of the hour, I'd introduce to you Dr. Tim Mwangi. Also joining us this morning, I'll give you the profiles of our guests much later, is Trufosa Kwaka. Also we do have with us this morning Dr. Juma Mukwana. We have with us Reverend Geoffrey Jenga. And we do have with us as well Dr. George Jenga. Good morning, gentlemen and lady.
Good morning.
Thank you. Right, so we want to actually buckle down to our discussion this morning, and it is 6:30. I'll give you a handy opportunity on the lectern there to tell us more about balancing the wheel of life. But maybe just to get introductory remarks from you, what is your idea about balancing the wheel of life? Because I know you have different approaches, and I will see how each and every one of you is going to slice and dice this particular topic this morning, also from the lectern there. But let's just begin with you, Tim.
Yes, I think balance has to do with an integrated life. All of these responsibilities that you mentioned, whether family or work, social, we live in a community, they're all part of us, and we must attend to all of them. So it's about an integrated life.
Right, fantastic. And of course, even in the meantime, you shall be on the lectern as we hear from also Trufosa. Good morning.
Good morning. So I think when we talk about balance,
yes,
is we are trying to look at how can we live life in the most fulfilled way possible.
Yes.
And so that's what I'll be looking at.
All right.
Just having that great fulfillment.
Okay.
That I've done my best at the end of time.
Fantastic. Dr. Juma.
Thanks. My understanding is as a human being, we are only complete. We have technical skills, we have soft skills, we have social skills, and how we balance all these affects how we succeed both at work and at home. So really, it's a delicate balance.
It's a delicate balance.
Yes.
Right. Let's hear from Reverend Geoffrey.
Yes, indeed.
Good morning.
I think, thank you. Yes, they have said it. I think it's a balanced life where you maintain the balance to achieve fulfillment. Because I think, above all else, what we are looking for in life is fulfillment. And we know that sometimes we pursue all manner of things. Perhaps we get them, but we do not get fulfilled.
Right, thank you. All right, let's hear from Dr. Zinga. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
It's been a while.
Debarl. Yes, it's about what they have said, fulfilling all the responsibilities of your life, what you have to do in life, but you also have to do it in order to be happy. If you're not happy doing it, then there's a problem. Yes.
Right, fantastic. Okay, so I want just to give you a bit of housekeeping here as far as time is concerned. I have my red card and yellow card and my bell as well. This is just for the sake of keeping time, for the benefit of them that they've never been to this particular forum before. So along the way, I'm going to raise the yellow card just to make sure that, yes, you are aware that you are at least midway through your given time. And when I raise the red card, just know you should be winding up. So you can be giving your headline thoughts. And of course, if you go beyond time, I'm going to ring the bell. So if you kindly don't get startled, right, and start winding up. Unless you see the red card, then you know you should be winding up. Of course, when you hear the bell tolling, then you should be out of the lectern as well, just for the sake of time. But we want to begin with you. Remember, you're mic'd, so you don't have to. There's another mic as well over there. But we want to begin with Dr. Tim Mwangi, who will walk to the podium. He will tell us who he is, and of course, he will continue with the discussion. The balancing the wheel of life. Balancing the wheel of life is what we're using this morning. Head over to our Twitter handle, and you can share your contribution, ask questions there as well. Also, you can find us on Facebook. That is AM Live NTV, and also 20686 is our SMS portal as well. So, Dr. Tim, thank you. You have 5 minutes beginning now.
Thank you, and good morning to the viewers. I serve as the Vice President for Strategy for the International Leadership Foundation, and I have also served quite for a long time, also in the faith community. I would say that, first of all, maybe just a history of this question of balance. Initially, I think the broad understanding of balance was maybe basically 4 areas. You'd look at maybe the spiritual, the intellectual, the physical, and the social. For those who come from the Christian faith, they remember a small verse, Luke 2:52, that balances those 4. However, more recently, there is an understanding that there are other areas that need attention. One of these is the area of emotions, which is kind of a breed between the intellectual and the social. That yes, in a community, but also, you know, how your attitude to life and motivation and so on. And the whole area of emotional intelligence has grown out of that. There's also the area of the vocation, which has to do with work. It's how you employ your physical strength, but also your intellect, your mind. It's a breed between the two so that you can look at your balance in terms of the area of work or vocation or career. Out of the physical as well, because of the importance of money, we are in a monetary economy, of course, the whole question of financial balance, you know, financial intelligence, financial balance, all that has grown again in some terms of somebody who is able to self-manage in the area of money. Finally, I would feel that the other area that is now growing is the area of what you hold dear, your values, and your ethics as well, what you practice. And again, that could be a breed between your spiritual commitments and the social as well. So today, even just the understanding of balance itself is a bit more complicated, so to speak. And yet we have to operate in all these realms. That's why in my opening remarks, I talked about the need then for an integrated approach. Interestingly, for the younger people, the millennials and maybe younger, they don't even think about work-life balance. They actually think about life as one thing. So it's a life balance situation. For them, work is only a small part, it's very integrated and so on. Unlike the older generation for whom work was a very big thing, for them, finding fulfillment, happiness is actually a bigger thing. And so it's a question of life balance. And they walk away from a job, not because it's not well paying, but because they don't feel happy, they don't feel like it's giving them what they need and so on. Then I thought maybe I would mention a few tips, since I'm sure viewers would appreciate, what is it that would help us all to get better balance, because we are all struggling and buffeted by life. One is, of course, to be clear on your end game. What's the legacy that you want to leave behind? Because that helps you to make the right choices along the way. Secondly, is to remember you cannot do it all. So have the attitude that I can only do a few things. So whether it's delegation, whether it's to do with prioritization, because nobody can do everything that there is to do today. There's a place for getting some training and maybe, equipping skills to be able to find balance. There's also the place for time for reflection. I think that's one of the things we are getting less and less of today. Whether it's a personal retreat or just time away on leave and truly take leave, that's a challenge today. Most people would just simply go to the side hustle or something like that. I would also say the place of ethical living right. Because then you don't have much baggage. A lot of the issues that we struggle with in terms of this area of balance is because there's a lot of weight we are carrying. Maybe say, for example, you have some secret life that you don't want everybody else to know, so you're kind of holding this back and it's weighing on you, yet you want to be free with the family, you want to be free at work or in your faith community, so ethical living. And I said it, the next one is a faith community. There are a lot of studies that are showing people who are in that kind of community are able to experience a better sense of wellness or health. In fact, in the whole area of leadership today, one of the new breaking areas is spiritual leadership, whereby somehow about your spirit, because that's the deepest part of it is our spirit. And when that is well, you are able to express your leadership well. And finally, I would say is a place, of course, of family. Again, there are lots of studies, a lot of corporates today are even investing in not only the individuals, but their families, because they found out that people who are well vested in their families, who are happy at their family level, are able to bring that happiness to work and are more productive. So these would be some thoughts for me at the outset.
Right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tim Mwangi. And of course, I've picked up some of the salient points he's raised this morning. We shall be teasing out some of this much later in the course of the program. He is the Vice Chair of the International Leadership Foundation, also is the Chair of the Bible Society of Kenya board as well. And we shall be drilling deeper on this. Remember, if you have questions, you can also paper the questions to our panelists via Twitter. Our Twitter handle is AMLiveNTV. AMLiveNTV is our profile name on Facebook, and 20686 our SMS portal. So looking at some of his facets that he's raised: delegation, training, ethical leadership, faith, community, and family, right? They always talk about integrated reporting from the corporate sector. I think also integrated reporting should be also from our own lives as well. How integrated are we, right? Or is everything out of kilter as far as your life is concerned? Right, we want to hear up next on the lectern Tufosa Kwakwesumba, who's the principal of St. Paul's University, and also we shall hear how she'll approach this particular topic, balancing the wheel of life. Trufi,
Thank
you got 5
you.
minutes.
Thank you and good morning. And good morning, my fellow panelists. What a topic and what a time to be thinking about it. I say this because just yesterday I was telling some friends of mine, where has the year gone? I don't know about you, but for me, I feel like the year flew out of my hands and I really do not know where it went to. So balancing of life, first of all, I want to start by what is the meaning, why do we talk about balance? We talk about balance because many times we are out of balance. And so what is being out of balance? Being out of balance means that something is not at equilibrium. Something that is supposed to be set is not where it is set. And in this case, we're talking about our lives. It means we feel that it is out of control and things are not as they should be. In the movie Lion's King, and I hope you're watching it or you're going to watch, they talk about the circle of life. And Simba, so I wouldn't say the story so that I don't spoil for those who haven't watched, but just they talk about the circle of life. And in the circle of life, one of the questions that Simba asks his father is, but Daddy, we eat the gazelles, and yet you're saying we need to protect them. And the father then explains that when a lion dies, the body goes into the soil, and out of the soil the grass grows. And when the grass grows, the gazelles are able to eat it. And that way, we protect the gazelles, but then we are also contributing to the circle of life. And later on, Simba is reminded about the circle of life, and he's told, you've got to pay your contribution to the circle of life. What am I saying? We are not animals, so we are not in the animal kingdom where man eats man society. That's not what I'm advocating for. But I'm saying there's a circle to our lives. And in that circle, we've got to ensure that things are in equilibrium. So a couple of thoughts there as we look at this topic. One is to pick from what Jim Collins said. Jim Collins said that good is the enemy of great. You've got to, with all your life, look at how can I live a great life. At the end of the day, at the end of my life, what I like my life to be counted? Like Tim said, what do I want my life to be like? In other words, if I was to write my own eulogy, what would I like my eulogy to read like? So some thoughts as you look at the decisions that you have to look at the circle of life. Number one is that you have to think about, when you're making decisions, think about short versus long term. There are some decisions we make that are in the short term, but they're an enemy to your long term. So think about it in terms of, I need to make this decision, yes, now, but what does it mean for the long term? Number two, think about temporary, permanent. There are decisions we make in the temporary, but they affect our permanent. In fact, the wise saying says, do never make a permanent decision in a temporary situation. Never make a permanent decision in a temporary situation. My third one that I'd like to give is principles versus pleasure, and Tim has talked about it as well. Live your life based on principles, not on pleasure. So pleasure versus principles. Sometimes we go for the pleasure, but forget the principles. What are the principles that guide you? And finally, my final thought is this. If you were to imagine that your life you're going to live 80 years, then it means you have 960 months. So depending with, when I look around the table here, calculate how many months you have lived, and imagine you're going to live up to 80. How many more months do you have to live? Actually, when you do it in months, it's very sobering. Then ask yourself, how can I live my life in a way that it is the greatest of all? Why? Because you just don't want a good life, but you want a great life. And as you do that, think about the three things I've mentioned so that at the end of the day, we can live a great life. Thank you.
All right. So what are the short-term goals and the long-term goals that you do have? What are some of the principles that are guiding you in life as well? We shall be looking at this particular of course, those principles that she's raised this morning and a raft of other issues as well in the course of the program. But right now, we want also to introduce to you Dr. Juma Mukhwana, who is the Director General and CEO of Kenya National Qualifications Authority, and of course is going to speak to us as well on that same subject, balancing the wheel of life. So you got 5 minutes beginning now.
Okay, thanks, Debarl. And this is an area that I grapple with every day. My name is Juma Mukhwana. I'm the Director General of the Kenya National Qualifications Authority. One of the things that I'm grappling with every day is how to fit skills into the workplace. So the work that I do every day is, and every time I talk to especially employers, one of the big issues they're saying is that there is a big mismatch between what they are looking for and what they are getting from the market in terms of the graduates that we are producing. If you look at it historically, we have always assessed the ability of somebody to fit into the workplace using the technical skills. But more and more increasingly, it has been found now that it's not enough for you to be an engineer, it's not enough for you to be a doctor, because you need other skills. You need social skills, you need soft skills, because you are not working with machines, you are working with people. So it means that we need a more holistic person. We need a more complete person for this person to be really productive in the workplace. And so there is a lot of implication in terms of who is the right worker for the right place. And you can see that the worker is changing. So now we are saying you need 50% of technical skills, but you also need 50% of social, team, self-management, networking, social skills for you to function and really perform in the workplace. And so, so as I was coming here, I was imagining then the world is changing, and I've seen young companies really encompassing this in terms of bringing home to the workplace, because what you see today is a workplace that is well integrated between the technical aspects, but also I see a place where we have brought our home into it. And so some of my thoughts then on this is, how do we then take this as a country? One, we need a workplace that then brings our social skills to bear, that brings our networking, that brings our leadership, our teamwork, our spiritual aspects into the workplace, so that we need a workplace that is complete, that makes us fulfilled, that enables us to express ourselves more than just using the technical skills. And so this goes beyond then the technical aspects, as I've said, and goes towards there. And at the end of the day, number two is that work is really useless if it doesn't impact society. And work is useless if it doesn't impact you as a person. So we are saying we need work that is fulfilling to others, but we also need work that is fulfilling to you, so that at the end of the day you go home feeling, I have contributed to the improvement of humanity. And so the kind of workplace that we are now looking for is, how do we make sure that both the technical, the soft, the social skills of our workers is brought to bear. And I think that is, because at the end of the day, after we have worked for 60 years, we are social beings. We have to go back to society. And one of the things that we've seen is people who retire then and don't want to go home, because you have spent your whole life trying to be part of a workplace. All of a sudden you realize you needed to be more complete than that. And so how do we prepare ourselves so that as we work, we are human beings, we are social, we are networking, and at the end of the day, when all the work is done, one, we've impacted society. Two, we have impacted ourselves in a way that we have grown from where we were to somewhere else. But more importantly, that when we now have to go back to society, we still feel fulfilled, we still feel needed, we still feel that we are still part of this society, because part of the previous work experience was that we actually got disconnected from society in such a way that we had people who retired in Nairobi and didn't want to go back to the rural areas because they didn't know how to fit in. Or they went back to the rural areas and they didn't really know how to become part of society again. So today, what we are advocating for is work in such a way that you are both in the workplace and you're both in society, so that when you are not working anymore, nothing really changes about you, because at the end of the day, we are all human. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Juma Mukwana. But the question will be then, how do you get still that balancing act, right? And that is what you're trying to probe as well, because most of you are saying, yeah, we really want to have this particular equilibrium, family and work, but still we find one side is lopsided. And this is what we're actually trying to decipher this morning, and we thank him for his sentiments as well. Up next, we have Reverend Geoffrey Njoroge, who's walking to the lectern right now. Njenga, hey. You know, we have two Njengas here today. He is an accredited mediator, and also he's a corporate governance expert as well. Sir, you got 5 minutes beginning now.
Thank you very much, and good morning. I spent most of my time thinking about corporate governance issues and also training mediators and also practicing mediation. And as you may also guess, I do preaching and teaching. That's how I spend my time. Now, in thinking about this topic, the question that comes to my mind is, what really is the goal of life? What are we looking for? What am I looking for? And I have learned that people are looking for fulfillment. People want to be fulfilled. They want to know that what they did today had meaning, purpose, and value for them. People are also looking for joy, and they're also looking for happiness. And thinking about balance, therefore, I think we then ought to know that these things will not be unless we pursue a sense of balance. And that's why the balanced wheel, the business, the finance, the health, the family, the fun, romance, personal development, and all these things, including fun and recreation and contributing to society, are important. So I think it would be very useful for us to pursue a balanced life for us to achieve the fulfillment that we are looking for. But what is the reality? The reality is we tend to be terribly unbalanced. When in health, we are not too sure what it is that we are looking for. We eat like there is no tomorrow, and more often than not, the wrong things. The doctors will tell us we are eating the wrong things. We work like we want to do everything today. We pursue work like there is nothing else. In fact, we push the body until the body collapses, and then you're in the hospital, and you can obviously not pursue what you wanted to pursue. Family life. Some of us are satisfied with the fact that we got married at some point. You ask most of us, romance? Really? What romance? I have a wife and she's at home. Or I have a husband and he's at home. And that is, you think that's enough until then problems begin to come because you pursued what in effect is a very unbalanced life. We need to come to terms with this reality and then ask ourselves, what really will get me what I'm looking for? And that really is the essence of this thing about a balanced life. And I want to make a few comments, a few contributions in then achieving the balance in life. One is making choices. And I think that has already been covered here. We need to make choices. Life is that you will not be able to do everything that you set out to do. That life is brief, life is short, and therefore we just have to be careful because it will keep throwing things at us. On any given day, there will be much more than you can do. And if we want to live balanced life, we just have to learn to say no. Somebody told me that word no is small but very powerful, that you can say no. Secondly, be equipped. Whatever it is that you set out to do, be the very best. So be equipped, study it, and be the best that you can. And you will definitely enjoy yourself. And then someone here said, work with others. That's a fact of life. You will not be able to achieve alone. We just have to learn to work. And you know, there's this thing about vain competition that we struggle with. And there is this scarcity mentality that we struggle, that we suffer. That if somebody gains, I lose. That if you gain, I lose. And therefore, I will do everything I can to bring you down so that I remain up. That's evil. That's vain competition. It gets you nowhere because you begin to do things which you really don't have to do. Another thing which I think is important is godliness. You know, we struggle with that, some of us, But there is a God in heaven who governs in the affairs of men. We cannot run away from that because it is the truth. There is a guy called King Solomon. He tried everything in his own strength, and he failed big time. At the end of his excursions, at the end of his experiments, he said, vanity of vanity and chasing after the wind. And you know, that guy achieved much, much more than you will achieve. That he did much more than you will do in his own strength, and he pursued those things for their own sake. He said, chasing after the wind. It is much later in his life that he discovered the truth of life, that there is a God in heaven, and no matter how much we try and explain that away, it will not work. He said everything has been hard, and he had done everything. And this is the conclusion of the matter. Fear God. And without godliness in our own lives, we will be chasing after the wind. So as you seek all these things to gain fulfillment and happiness and joy, we need to remember that there is a God. Which also brings in another important factor, which is values. Our country is in dire need for men and women who will know what is right and what is wrong and pursue what is right. Now, finally, the brevity of life. Trufosa has told us about months. It is actually not 80. 10 is bonus. It is 70. That's what you are given. And most of you viewers, if you have spent already 50% of that time, which means what? You are 35. The next 50 years, you'll be dead. And that is a sobering thought, that you're not going to be there tomorrow. Life is brief. Grab it and do the best you can. Thank you.
Right. And if you'll not be dead by then, that will be a bonus life that God has given you. Right. The good book says, teach us to number our days that we may... Yes, that we may apply wisdom. Right.
You became a preacher.
I became a preacher, actually. You've inspired me. We want to take a short break right now. When we circle back, of course, we continue with more. We shall hear from Dr. George Njenga, who is the Executive Dean of Strathmore University Business School. Of course, also he'll give us his thoughts about balancing this wheel of life, right? Is it a mirage? When we try to approach it, it eludes us, right? So please don't go away. Stick around for more.
wanajitambua, yani wale wanajiamini.
Yani someone took their sweet time and thought about us.
Rembo TV, simply beautiful.
Breakfast is not complete without the new Minute Maid Nutri-Defense's Nectar Plus. Complete the most important meal of the day with the goodness of great-tasting juice fortified with vitamin E and zinc to complement your family's nutritional needs. Minute Maid Nutri-Defense's Nectar Plus. Breakfast complete.
Milioni 5 wanataka tugawane watu 51,325,223. Hapo mtu atakula nini? Na hiyo bado hujahesabu walevi wenye wameingia Uganda na ndugu yako Miguna. But ampendi Ezekiel Mutua.
Kama wewe ni leader, umepewa cheo, unakula tax money, unapewa mshande na serikali. Kama hapo na solution ya maana.
Wewe ungekuwa Ezekiel Mutua.
Mimi ninge resign nifunge hiyo kampuni.
Solution. Check.
It just started on my lips. There was no doctor who was able to diagnose.
Why it will happen to some area and not other areas, nobody knows.
People out there see you like you are a curse, like just not a normal person.
Initially, most people used to think every time they see you like this, it's cancer, it is HIV. And you see people greeting you, they want to greet you, they don't want, those ones of, could I get it, could I not get it, because it's not infectious.
September 2019 and January 2020 intakes are ongoing. Call us today on 0724 256 162 or 0725 751 878. Kenya Methodist University. The future is here.
My name is Joyce Njogu. I'm the head of consulting at the Kenya Association of Manufacturers. It's a business membership organization for manufacturing value-add industries with close to 1,000 members. From Daily Nation, we've been able to build our brand as CAM. We've been able to build the credibility of CAM, because the more you communicate through the Daily Nation, the more we have partners wanting to engage with us and be part of the development agenda.
Our leadership isn't challenged, and that's the truth. Daily Nation. The truth.
Teaches to number our days that we may gain a heart of wisdom. That is what the good book says. And of course, we are looking at the balancing the wheel of life. We've heard from our panelists this morning from the elect. And lastly, we want to hear from Dr. George Njenga, who is Executive Dean of Strathmore University Business School. Sir, you got 5 minutes.
So, thank you very much, Debarl. My colleagues have said a lot. And so, if I repeat, you will forgive me. My opinion is that balancing your life means fulfilling all the needs of your life. And it has one purpose, that at the end of the day, you live a unity of life. Now, that's a bit of a difficult issue, but let's go down to the details. What is life? What is your life? Is it the matter, the body, together? Is it the spirit and heart? Yes, it is. Matter, body, spirit, and heart. Matter and body, the lowest part, the animal part, refers to the needs of the health and rest that you have in life. So these two things are very important. We have to take care of our health, and we have to rest our mind and our body as a totality in order to balance that part of your life. You can't just keep working it like a machine. You're not a machine. It demands management of the material things of life. The spirit. This is the hardest part, which is the intellect and the emotions and the will together. The spirit is what makes you alive. If you want, any material thing, it can be dead like this wood. But what is it that keeps it alive? It's the spirit, the soul. Now that spirit has an intellect, has a will, and has emotions. The purpose of the intellect is that you learn, and learn everything about your life, about your God, and about others. The will is that you actually do what you know is best in your life. And your emotions are those things that will act as obstacles along the way, but also sometimes very helpful. And then, I think this is very important, but I've heard one thing, your heart. Your heart is very funny, because now that all of us are speaking about the great book, I remember something about your heart in the scripture. Where your treasure is, there will your heart be. Isn't it? So if your treasure is in matter, then that is where your heart will be. If it is in spirit, that is where your heart will be. That is what will contain your heart. But in brief, what is heart? Your heart are those things that you possess. This is a very important issue for me. Your heart is God, is your family, is your society. And only to the extent of the things you possess in those things. So God, how much do you possess of God? In other words, how much do you know and live with about God? The second one is family. How much do you love your husband or your wife and your children and the extended family? But you possess in so long as you love. Then the society, how much do you reach out beyond these things to others? Balancing all these things that have been mentioned requires that you fulfill 5 things in your life. And by the way, this is because I am a philosopher, so I can tell you these things is after reading a lot of philosophy and hearing a lot of people and seeing what is happening around me. In order to do these things, you need to work on 5 areas, which I can talk about later, but then it's up to you to think about them in the meantime. Number 1 is that you have to build your professional life, your study. You have to work. Work means exerting yourself for the good of others and yourself. The second thing is you have to work on your character. You have to build the virtues that make your life fulfilled. If you want to work and you can't wake up in the morning, if you want to work but you don't have order, then you're not going to work well. So you don't balance your life. You spend more time messing around than anything. But you also have many other virtues. The spiritual ascetical means that you will have to overcome your emotional deficiencies, your attacks and so on. The weaknesses of your life. You have to struggle. Life is a struggle, a very difficult struggle. Many times we cry struggling against our defects, against the difficulties of the brothers and sisters around us. Then there is the doctrinal, which has been spoken about. How much of God do you know? Do you even read the scripture? Or do you know just 2 words of the scripture, not the whole content and the unity of it? And then the last thing is you have to serve others. Beyond the first 4 deal with you as a person, but the 5th calls you out to action. That is to give yourself to others. And with that, hopefully, if you struggle in all these things, then you might reach a unity of life and get fulfilled. But the last thing I want to tell you is struggle. Wherever you are, in whatever circumstances you have been given by God, there is nothing that is for granted. You have a purpose, and it is right there. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. George Njenga. And right now, we want to, just buckle down to discussion and hear from what they had actually spoken of, beginning with Dr. Tim Mwangi, who he gave us some of the pointers that we should take cognizance of when it comes to balancing our life: delegation, training, ethical leadership, faith, community, and also family, which is very big. And if you listen keenly to all our panelists, actually, it all percolates to, the same vein of thought when it comes to spirituality, when it comes to delegation, when it comes to even training, building your professional life. We've just heard from Dr. Njenga finally. But let's just get down to some of these salient points that they've raised this morning. First of all, because if we may peg our thoughts on spirituality, peg our thoughts on professional life, peg our thoughts on the society as well, how do we also put out, our tentacles in all these 3 areas? Let's just begin with you. First of all, Tim, because I know you have to leave this morning as well. You have a board meeting as well, so we'll release you early. But thanks for coming nonetheless. You talk about delegation, training, ethical leadership, faith, community. What about a person who doesn't believe in God? Right? Where is the place of faith? He talks about spirituality, that you have also to know the scripture. A person who this morning is not subscribing to any scripture or any word, how does he balance his life? Or you believe you are just a matter, so to speak. You're just a body. When you die, there is nothing else after life. So where do we place ourselves? Do you just live for now and do you forget other facets of life?
Thank you, Debarl. Good question. And I think this is an issue that many people struggle with. The truth is that aspect of life, it relates a lot, the whole spiritual, relates to our purpose, relates to our inner sense of being and worth and reason for existence and so on. And that's a question that many people are struggling with today. Why am I here? Is it all about, because again, life has been so programmed for many of us. You're born, you go to school, you work, you retire, Is that all there is to life? And I think when one is not able to answer that question, usually then they have that gap that's yawning in their own life. There's a saying by a scientist that every one of us has got that God-shaped vacuum, that inner vacuum within us. and cannot be filled by anything else. So what human beings tend to do is to try and feel all kinds of things. Maybe the temporal. Some of the panelists mentioned that. Look, have a bath, have something, a bash or something, do something, for the temporal. But it doesn't fulfill that. You are still left with that gap. So I think it's an important thing for our viewers to consider. Do I know my purpose? Do I know where I'm headed? Do I know why I'm here? And I think that begins to help you answer those questions. There are a lot of researches that have been done, as I mentioned earlier, in terms of how spirituality is today enhancing leadership. And in fact, there is no question. I think it was last year's Harvard Business Review that talked about the top performing CEOs around the world were all people with deep spiritual lives. So it's getting acknowledged now. Maybe we have gone full circle. That's why we started. Maybe we have gone full circle. At some point, of course, we bashed it and we thought it's the one part we can leave out science and progress. But I think we are back there, recognizing that that's so important for this a person who is well anchored in their own life and able to lead others and bring meaning and satisfaction and fulfillment to others as well.
So it seems to us that when you look at life, we have templates.
Yes.
And you're born, you go to school. After school, you get married. After marriage, of course, you have children. You have children. After that, you retire from your work. And of course, this is where Dr. Mkhwana was coming in very handy on retirement as well. But should we subscribe? Should we follow the structure and the template of life? Why can't we just live our lives with our own templates? Should we follow these particular structures that have been put down, by, I don't know who came up with these structures in the first place. Maybe the philosophers will tell us they've studied this from Socrates and Plato. Who came up with these templates? Right, team?
Thank you.
Again, before you go.
Very briefly, the younger people are much better at this, and that's why I talked earlier that for them there's not even a question of work-life balance. It's life in totality. They tend to take life more holistically, unlike those of us who are a bit older. Because they've been born, especially those being born in the urban areas and so on, they're not struggling with the basics like maybe we did. For me, going to school was a way of escaping poverty and hard life in the village. So I wanted to get here, but children are being born already in this sense of plenty, and they already have the basics taken care of. So if you threaten them at the workplace and tell them, I'm going to sack you, because, and so on, they're not threatened. They're not going back to the village. They're going to a life, a home with the amenities and TV and internet. So there has to be a bit more than just the physical side of life. That's why finding meaning is very important. And they have found, especially among the millennials, helping them find that sense of inner purpose, inner drive is important to unlocking their potential even at the place of work. That's how come, then finding that enhances performance, enhances good living, and of course the factor that they're able to work with others. Of course, we all live in a social world. So again, yes, you can choose your own way of life, but then you also have to interact with others. So again, do you want to be a social misfit? How do you interact? How do you engage? So that you are meaningfully engaged. And I think Dr. Mkhwana talked about that. You don't just wait again to engage at the end of life. It is something that you need to find a way to do that. And I've had to resolve that in my own life. How do I engage as a professional, as a leader, but also somebody who is in my own community? How can I have an authentic relationships with my own community? Because that also adds to the fulfillment of life.
Fantastic. Thank you. I'll release you right now. Thank you for coming. And of course, we shall be engaging you more and more with other forums that we'll be having as well. Thank you for showing up this morning. We really do appreciate it. Right, let's hear from Tufosa, because it seems, as we're hearing this morning, that yes, we prepare people for these different facets of life, but after retirement, they find out they are not actually adequately prepared to, life after retirement. That is a huge problem, Dr. Juma Mkhwana as well. You mentioned that. So you find yourself groping around. You don't know what to do. You have all this length of time left, in front of you, but you don't know how to actually apply yourself to the society, because your whole life was circling around, your work. So your work has become your identity.
I think, I want to go back to how I began, to say we must look at life from the end. How do I want my life to end up like? How will it look like? And what would it be composed of? Because when we think about the end from the beginning, it sort of helps you to shape up how you would end up there anyway. But when unfortunately, how many of us approach life is, what will be, will be. So you just take life as it comes. Whereas thinking that I'm actually an architect of my life. Now, as a Christian, I believe God is there and he directs me. But he's also put me as a decision maker for my own life. So I'm actually responsible for my life. How it will end up, a lot of it depends with me. In fact, I am the total sum of the decisions I have made in the past. Therefore, how I will end up at retirement will be the total sum of the decisions I have made, but the ones I'm making from today up to that time. Therefore, I must think, how would I like my life to be? So I must think about it in terms of, one, what is my purpose? It's beyond work. It's beyond my career. What is it that I have been created to contribute to? And what is my contribution? So that as I'm looking back at the totality or at the circle of life, I'm saying, I have been created to do this. And once I identify that purpose, I begin to work towards it. But I must also begin, like Tim has said, and borrowing from everybody else. My life is not just one track. It's made of many tracks. But the other thing about it is that not only is my life not only of many tracks, but it is also of many seasons. And I must live within my season. And that is why I brought in the aspect of, as then I'm making those decisions about the tracks and about the seasons, I must think about short versus long term. I must think about temporary versus permanent. And I must think about pleasure versus principles. Because when I put these things together, then I'm beginning to say I must make the total sum of my decisions must be that which will count and I'll be proud of. So I think it's multifaceted, if you like.
It is multifaceted. I agree with you. So you have all these tracks that is a consummation of life. Then they always say pleasure also is very important in life as well, because they say if you don't plan for if you don't plan for your pleasure, of course the pain will just plan by itself. So that one is a default. Pain will always obviously come into your life, but you need to plan for your pleasures as well. So, but looking at the long term, how then do we get to prepare our people for retirement, right? You know, the sunset years. Many of them are grappling. They wonder, so what do I do next? Is this just to enjoy my pension? Go to the Bahamas? Is this what life is all about? And who came up with the retirement age as well, right? Because we've been given that 70 years that you say is in the Bible, and the bonus of it as well. If you're 180 or going above, that is a bonus. But from the current structure of a society, do you think we should retire? Should we retire? And what does retirement mean? Should we be qualified from the National Kenya Qualifications Authority for retirement? Maybe you're setting up a curriculum on that as well.
I think what I would say when we think about balance, one of the things I think that has come out of this conversation is that there's the new normal. What we have seen is that what was a balance in 1970, 1980 is not a balance in 2019. So things are changing. I think that's what we agree, that what we consider to be a balanced life, work, social, is really changing. And what it also then means, the implication is then we must re-engineer ourselves for this new normal. And to re-engineer ourselves, I think the question then is if the workplace is changing, and that's where I started, is our training then changing to give us the new skills that we need in the new workplace? Is the workplace itself changing to give us this kind of the new normal? And so what it means is that we must equip ourselves differently, both as workers and as workplaces and as homes, because then this is the reality that is happening. And as I've indicated here, we must bring more of the home into the workplace. But we must also bring, if you look at it, the boundary between work and home is really dying away in this era of internet. And so we need flexible work schedules. as you said, who said we must work from 8 to 5? People are working. I know that things are, and
as long as you're meeting your deadlines,
but the bottom line that I started with is, in all this work, social interaction, what is the purpose? Because my belief, and we've talked about spirituality here, is that for each one of us, God had a purpose for which you were made. And so my belief is that you were made because there was something that you needed to contribute to society, to the life of others. And so until you find that purpose, then you see all the work and all the interactions are then in vain. And so how do you find the purpose for which God brought you to this world? And I think that is a more difficult, complicated question, which we must search for as individuals, because we all have a different purpose. There is something that you really must do before you live, and the question is, what is it? And that is not a question that we can answer here. But everybody, looking at the social, the technical, and everything else that you have, you really have to define, what is it that I am meant to achieve? What is it that, what difference will I bring? Because we are part of a whole. And this whole is that each one of us has different skills and different talents that we must bring to bear for the benefit of others. And I think that is a question that, and so as we dance to the music of life, the question is, are we fulfilling the purpose for which we were created? Are we remaining relevant in this changing work-life balance? And I think those are questions that really are more individual than the crowd. That's the way I would put it.
All right, thank you. And Rev. Geoffrey, you raise an important point as well, because also it seems in this particular wheel of life, romance also is the one which is really suffering when it comes to, balancing the wheel as well.
Right.
Many of the viewers we've been watching this morning may attest to this fact that they feel that at least they're walking through, or they're going through a dry spell as far as, their love is concerned in the family, which is it's a pivotal, aspect of gluing up or the family together. But they feel maybe our lives have become so lopsided. We are always navel-gazing on work. It is work. We carry the laptops at home. We're on phone all the time. And it's business trips all the time. We are globe-trotting around, but we are not on the family. Then how do we, for that particular person who's feeling that at least that particular aspect is out of kilter, then how do we rectify that? How do we reconfigure it back, sort of recalibrate it?
Well, in this world of vain competition and wanting to grab everything there is, we have allowed ourselves to fight to conquer. And that has permeated in every segment of our lives. I go through school to conquer, get certificates, and I'm out of there. I didn't have any interest in intellectual things. I just wanted to get certificates. I get into business to make money. I make money even when it is of no value or purpose. I want to make it anyway because I have been trained to conquer and to grab. I talked about scarcity mentality. If another person gets it, I have lost. Now, this romance thing begins to go the same path, that I must get a wife. I will do everything I can to get a husband. Once I achieve that, I conquer. I park that at home. There are other things to do. If you don't plan for that life that you have conquered, that person that you have brought into your life, you will be like two cars parked in a garage at some point. Two cars parked in a garage don't touch for any reason at all. So there ought to be a planning, a purposeful engagement, and bringing in the balance. I have heard a lot here about God and his purpose for my life. Now, some people struggle with this element of God. The fact that you struggle with the issue of whether God exists or not does not in any way mean he doesn't. I think the struggle is on your side. The struggle is not on God's side. And discovering God is not necessarily going to church. God has revealed himself in many different ways if we care to listen. So we need to bring the structure and order even in our marriage life by planning, purposely planning for the things that will happen, because if you don't plan, you plan to fail. If you don't plan to succeed, you plan to fail. And therefore, there is a great need in managing, in planning for it. Move away from this conquer and victory thing, but accept that that aspect of life needs planning as well. Another thing that has been talked about is this retirement. I get very worried about retirement in this country because retirement is associated with death. If you tell anybody you have retired, they know that you're going to die. And you know what? To a large extent, it is true. Because you, and Mkwana is talking about it, you spent all your life in the place of work, and that's all the life there was. And then suddenly, that rejects you when you retire, and you move on to nothingness. And within a very short time, people who retire die. What do I say about this? Our life needs to be organized, but we need to accept the phases of life. As a believer in God, I believe God can use you in any phase of your life. We are told that Abraham got his son when he was 100 years old. I don't think, Debarl, you are anywhere near that. But I'm not even in any way suggesting you need a son. I'm only saying that that's when he got his son. So don't go there. And there was a man called Abraham, called Moses. He got the greatest job on earth at that point, the great rescue mission, when he was 80. And I try and encourage people to understand God can use you at any stage in life. But we need to be orderly, we need to be organized, and live the phase to the fullest. To me, retirement is changing job location and go and do something else. Perhaps not with much energy, but still something that can be very, very useful and very fulfilling.
Thank you. And that transition, they normally say this is from success to significance.
Yes.
That after amassing all the success, then again you find there's a hole that you're talking about.
That's right.
That it has not really quenched that particular thirst, and there's something you're looking forward to satiate that particular thirst that is that you want to select that thirst that is deep within you. So from success to significance. Significance is where also you're looking deeply inside you, and you talked about spirituality where you really struggle on this. You mentioned this is where the will, the emotion is. How do we then couple? Where is the soul in this? What is matter and body? Right? Am I just can we uncouple matter from body? The philosopher, Dr. George.
First of all, let me wish you good morning. Yes, they have been talking about it. I mean, I've had things like you are given 70 years. That's what my reverend brother here was telling me, 70 years. But the way I see it is this. Yesterday I had to condole with my brother whose young son has died, tender. And I had to condole with, at the same time, the mother of one of my workmates who has died at the tender age of 69. She didn't reach 70. And I was thinking that my life could go. Debarl, my life could go anytime. Now, assume that we take that as the principle of soul and matter. That at one moment, I will die. So what's the difference between that? It's soul and matter. Soul, ours is spiritual, not like that of animals and plants.
Yes.
So ours is spiritual. That means it demands to understand what is the purpose and to make purposeful our work. That is why it's spiritual. For an animal, it lives to subsist, to be healthy, to subsist, and that's it. And it dies. It doesn't make houses. It doesn't think about this child. It doesn't think about nuclear science. No, it just lives to survive and to nourish its body. Now, therefore, there must have been something living before the death. And with that, I stop there because the rest will be too philosophical. So now let me go to what is inside that soul, because that's the only thing that really matters when you die. Doesn't matter how much money you have, buildings you have, how many beds and cars you have, how many shoes you have. It matters a little bit what love you have put in your wife, what love you have put in your children, what love you have put for those brothers and sisters whom you've worked all your life for. That's the only thing you can possess. And that's what we refer to as legacy, that you need to understand. Legacy is about what you give, and give to your children, to your wife or husband, to your friends, but also to your great-grandchildren. Great men and women leave things for 200 to 500 years. That's why we read history. We don't read history of our country. If we read the history of our country, we would start thinking, what have our brothers and sisters left us? Okay, they fought for our independence. Well, what did they leave us after the independence struggle? Well, those who fought were put aside. Those who were studying while the rest were fighting are the ones who took over. What have they left us for the last 60 years of the so-called Kenya? You think about that, because we need some legacy. And I think there are some beautiful things and some things that hurt us deeply, very deeply. Listen. You need, as they have said, to know the will of God for you. Because that's the only thing truly you can possess, the one that gives meaning. If you don't want God, at least put meaning in something else. If you want to put it in a cow, in a dog, in a house, at least put meaning. If you want to put it in your own self, that is to turn yourself into a God, well, do it. The only problem with those things is that life has taught us that they are rather empty. Then struggle. Overcome the barrier between what you see is great today if you die and that which you need to achieve. In other words, take care of your family. But that study is useless if you can't put it into practice in work. Get money, but money is for the things of those you love. Share it with yourself and with others. Share it. Don't keep it, because if you die, you can't. I had somebody died in the US and was asked to bury, he asked in his will to be buried with his cars inside the grave. Okay, good. Okay. We will bury you with your cars and your houses and your money and your bank account and your credit card. If it will add anything to your life, we will do it. But really, that is far much more useless than having helped a poor person. Go out of yourself if you have more to rescue your brother and sister who had a misfortune which you don't have. This is working for others and society. But don't tell me you're working for the Somalis in Somaliland or or the Turkish in Turkey or Syrians when you are not taking care of your wife and your brothers and sisters in the community you live. Because that would be a lack of balance in life. Starting with the farthest things rather than things that God has, the neighbor next to you, your brothers and sisters. So what is your signature in this life? Don't worry. There is nothing called balance. At the end of the day, it's what you have done. And if you want to do many things, you need to balance.
But you said there's nothing like a balance again.
Because really there is nothing like a balance. When you die, there is no measure. The only balance there, if you want as a Christian, is whether you did many good things vis-a-vis bad or whether you are totally bad vis-a-vis good.
What about a person who chuckled that, okay, he's chuckling this morning and we're saying, oh, study hard, yeah, apply yourself and then you get a job. But in this country, the reality is on the ground. You have, you know, your first class honors, yeah, and some...
The reality in this something you said before, that sometimes we think the world prepares for us a place. The world doesn't prepare for us a place. The only place the world has prepared for us, and thanks be to it, is our mother's womb. But the moment we leave our mother's womb, the brothers and sisters take care of us, but the rest is ourselves. This has to be very clear. Now, you don't, if you're given lemon, make lemon juice. Don't tell me that I'll give you an example. I have a young man who I was sent because of a good ambassador who saw him. This young man was born in the greatest poverty in Busia. the greatest poverty. Part of it is the lack of fulfillment of life of some husbands who leave their wives because of the difficulties. So the husband left this woman with 6 children. Now, this woman doesn't even know where to begin. However, anyway, she managed. She lived her life the way she was given by God. Now, this young man was a watchman. I took this young man and started asking him questions. And guess what? In all those things, this kid got an A. The mother managed to send this kid to Maseno. My mother didn't have money to pay. What happened in life? People gave him a scholarship. Now he's a watchman with an A and a Bachelor of Commerce somewhere else. I won't say where. But a watchman, because he couldn't get a job. As a watchman, he took his brothers and brought them home and started helping them with the little money he has. And I can say that of 1,000,001 Kenyans and other people in the rest of the world. Make use of what you have. Now that I was told to come into his life, I'm trying to see, can we make his life a bit better and more useful? But he's lived his life. If he dies today, he won't say that, oh no, life didn't give me a cake, gave me lemons. No, he has done his job. And those mothers who are fighting every day to make their life happen because of their children, because husbands, I'm afraid we have to do a lot of work.
Thank you.
We lack balance.
Right. So let's hear from Trufi as well. Life does not really owe us a living, in essence.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So we come with this mentality that our brothers, they have to help us. Even our aging parents, we have to help them. But in reality is, how did you prepare your life? Is it because now you're actually pegging and milking your children right now, so to speak, because you feel they have to take good care of you? But in essence, you did not prepare yourself, right? That's the reality on the ground. If we look at other, of course, cultures as well. I don't know what will be input.
Yeah, so I like what Dr. Njenga has just mentioned about thinking about in terms of legacy, which for me goes back to what I was saying, the circle of life. What are you giving back? Because great fulfillment, by the way, if you read throughout history, is always about people who gave back. There is no great fulfillment when you hoard. And that for me is a real problem, to digress a bit, with the leadership in our nation. It just looks like we are always hoarding. It looks like it's always about this person who needs to amass this big amount of wealth, but never giving back. And so I'll do everything to get, but nothing to give. I think it is about giving back. So that we need to be able to condition ourselves and to begin to think from a very young age, how do I live my life in great fulfillment? And how do I get that great fulfillment? Great fulfillment is by giving back. And how do I give back my best? How do I give back my best? So if I look at myself now, first of all, I'm married to a wonderful man. How do I give myself as the best wife he can ever have for the time that I have as his wife? Then I have 3 beautiful children. How can I be the best mother for my 3 children at their different ages and their different personalities? Then I have wonderful parents and siblings and in-laws. How can I be the best to them? How can I be the best worker, employee? I'm employed somewhere. So how can I be the best employee? I may not be the perfect, I'm not looking for perfection, but how can I be the best within the limitations that I have? How can I be the best citizen of this county? I live in Nairobi County. How can I be the best citizen? How can I be the best citizen of our nation, Kenya? How can I be the best global citizen? Then I look at my other roles. I'm a student. I'm Dr. Njenga's student. How can I be the best student while I'm there? And there are limitations. I'm not saying I'm an A student. I'm not. I'm just saying that within my limitations, how can I be the best? Then I play other things. I'm here today. How can I be the best to give something back to those who are listening to us and to our panelists?
But what about that person who's feeling embittered about life itself? You know, you're trying to actually talk, but you find there is this particular scar within you and it's festering, and you're feeling you're so embittered about life. Things just maybe took another turn altogether. Things were going very, seamlessly flowing along the way, but it took off on another tangent altogether, and you're bitter because you cannot get back to where you were. So you're actually reflective all the time of where your life was then, right? That is a wheel which is out of balance, so to speak.
And that's true. So I'm not a philosopher, but I think Socrates said that a life unexamined is not worth living. So if I examine my life and find I'm in a place of bitterness, what I'm giving out is bitterness. Is that the best? No. So I must go back and say, how can I live my life best, even though life has given me sour grapes? How can I turn this into wine? How can I make it best, even though I was given a raw deal? And we have numerous examples that we can give of people who have been thrown the worst, but have taken it, turned around, and have become the best.
Right.
Life is not fair.
Yep.
And it is never going to be fair, but you're going to make it worth it.
Right. Let's hear from Dr. Juma, because you concentrated mostly on in the workplace, right? And we want to find out in the workplace. Yeah, also embittered employees, you know, people who feel like life has not been fair within the workplace for them as well.
Picking up from where Trufena has left, I think
Trufosa.
that Trufosa, sorry. It seems like for many of us, we end up living life like we are chasing the wind, because this balance that we are looking at is a moving target. And I look at the words of black liberation hero in the US, Jackson, who said, he has been to the mountaintop and he has seen the promised land.
That's
Martin Luther King.
Martin Luther King, sorry. Yes. But when you reach the mountaintop, you see more hills and more mountains. So I think the irony of life is that we are chasing the wind sometimes. And the target is a moving target. And so when you reach the top, when you think you have reached what you needed in your marriage, then you see a vacuum in your social life. When you think you have fixed the gap that you had in your social life, then you have something else to deal with, children or the workplace. And so there are many more hills that you have to cover, and we never know how many those hills are. And so the idea then is, how resilient are we, first of all, to surmount all these hills and mountains, so that at the end of the day, I go back to what I say, that nobody has promised us that this life will be, as I always tell people, life is a journey. And when you go for a journey on a road, there's no road that is just straight. The hill will have valleys, and it will have places where you'll climb, and it will have sharp corners, and you have to navigate all these hills and valleys and sharp corners, and one, still remain yourself, still remain in control, still remain focused, still remain enthusiastic, still remain somebody that society can count upon. And that is not very easy, because, as I said, we are chasing a moving target. And so, but in this whole scenario, then certain things come up. One, that because we don't know about the uncertainty of our journey, we must be willing to adapt. We must be willing to learn. So when things change, we don't say, this is how my grandfather used to do it. And so we must be willing to be different, because sometimes what has worked for Reverend Jenga will not work for me. So I cannot say, because he used this route, and it seems, and you see what we call success, Debarl, is a marriage. What is success? Because what is success to her will not be success to me. And so, because this is, and that's why I said sometimes we end up chasing the wind. And so in this confusion and in these many hills that we have to surmount to find purpose, the question then is, how will I survive? How will I adapt? How will I learn? So that at the end of the day, I am still able to deliver on the promises for which I was created, because there was a purpose. And so it's a fairly difficult scenario, but that's the way I would put it. And so when I am gone, what is it that you remember me for? When I have, and not just gone in terms of death, if I am a family person, what is it that my family will remember me for?
Right.
If I'm in a workplace, and we all change workplaces, and I leave a workplace, what impact have I made? What is it that people remember me? When you leave a workplace, what do people say about you? Do they miss you? Do they say that was good riddance? And so as you move from one hill to another, you make impact. Some of it will be positive, some of it will be negative, but at the end of the day, what is it that we'll remember you for? And for me, that is very, very important.
All right, thank you. We are talking about also labor, and I remember is it the Rockefeller's credo that says, I believe in the dignity of labor, whether with head or with hand, that life owes no one a living, but it owes every man an opportunity to make a living. And when we say life isn't fair, but we still there's so many people who are feeling that they're not given an opportunity to make a living, right? Yes, it's true, life does not owe us a living, but the opportunity to make a living, I mean, that is a sole right for every man. So when we come and we look on that particular tunnel and we see this wheel that we're talking about this morning, that you have your life, but you cannot actually even have that opportunity of making a living. How would you say, I mean, how does it dignify your labor? Because at the end of the day, you know, having poverty is dignifying at the end of the day for so many people. Rev.
Well, that's an important point about creating opportunities for other people. And the leadership of this country is indicted for wanting to grab and hoard. I think the greatest thing that has happened, or that could happen in this country, was devolution, and it has happened in putting money out there in mashinani, and therefore I think in this country we do have a chance, and if we really wanted to create opportunities for other people, we really have no excuse. Especially as a leader, I ought to be clearly and completely convinced that the role of my leadership is to create opportunities for other people, and so that people can live in dignity. There's no reason. I mean, this country has so much money.
Yes.
We have so much resources. Countries which don't have as much as we do have made great strides in creating opportunities for their citizenry, and therefore I would say every leader, we need to create opportunity, whether that is in my home, people working for me, whether I am in the office working for a corporation. I need to see it as the opportunity to create the chance to create opportunities for other people. But having said that, I want to come back to the point that has been made, that life is not fair. Yes, indeed it is not. And that nobody owes you anything anyway. I think God has given us brains. God will give me a chance if nobody else does. He will give me a chance, and He has given me resources that I can use. I think we have a generation in this country of people who are suffering from this sense of entitlement. That they want because someone else has. They want what the father has, what the mother has, what the home has. And therefore, we have crippled a generation by not telling them to go out there, or helping them to go out there and use their God-given brains to create opportunities for themselves. I have seen a great evil. In my work as a mediator, I have been doing a lot in the family business. And the family business in this country is in trouble because the parents worked very hard, and then you have a bunch of kids who have this sense of entitlement. They don't want to work in the business, they want the money. And as soon as the father dies, they rush to court. And you have seen, you can count very many prominent families, they rush to court and they get destroyed there because the court will not give them what they are looking for. But what they are looking for is to get the material resources which they didn't work for, and which basically they feel entitled to, not to come and tend the business, but to use the money. It's a great problem there.
But you talked of the good book. The good book says that a good man will leave inheritance.
Yes, that's true.
For his children's children.
Yes, for his children's children.
Yeah, and,
yes.
and the wealth of sinners will be claimed by the righteous.
I can see you're getting there.
Yeah.
I knew you would at some point.
Yes. So the question is, then again, is it because there was lack of preparation from a good man to leave an inheritance for his children? Because when you're talking about giving back, what are we really giving back at the end of our lives?
Yes.
Yeah, from the workplace. Are we
Yes.
coming out with an empty pail
Yeah.
to our children?
Yes.
Right? So they have a disadvantage on how also they're starting off from their lives, right? How many parents even prepare or have trust for their children, you know, thinking ahead? Or, again, when you're talking about opportunity that life will give you to make a living, right? And you're actually living from hand to mouth, then how do you prepare even for your children's, you know, future in the long run?
I would not comment.
And that's a bigger question.
I will not comment about those who don't have resources. I'm concerned about those who do, and you talked about preparation, preparing the children to take over.
But there's so many people out there who have, you know, the goodwill to give the best to their family, to their children. But at the end of the day, they lack. They say, where do I actually have the resources to distribute
and I
give them a good life?
And I say it so, that our leadership ought to create opportunities for everybody in the society to live a decent life. It's not that we don't have resources in this country, but we are too selfish.
Right.
We are too self-absorbed. It is me, myself, and I. The me generation is here with us. And particularly with our leaders, they want everything for themselves. So I see the need there to create opportunities for people wherever I might be. In every strata of society, we create opportunities for other people. Those who have made resources, and I'm addressing parents, help your children to connect with the business, not with the money. Our children connect with the money in the business, and therefore they know that there is money in that business, but they've never connected with the business.
Right. Let's hear from Dr. Ari.
Be humble, Debarl. You see, in life, our mind desires many things. It desires the 3 G's. If you are a man, the 3 G's are glory, which usually is the last one. If you are a man, girls, and great wealth. So power, 3 G's. You want these things. If you have this nice girl who is now your wife, you want the other one across the center there. Or you wanted to do something beautiful for the people in your office, but you want them to love you instead. Or the things go wrong. Be humble. Start again. So what you have is not things, it is life. So I hear times, oh, you know, I've been born in poverty. What do you mean you have been born in poverty? Real poverty is you are born without legs, without a helping hand, with a deformed brain. Real poverty is when you have nothing in your hands for which to work. But I see people with eyes, with ears, with a healthy mouth, with a healthy body, with strong legs and flesh, and they tell me they are poor. No, get out and work. My colleague Vincent Ogutu, who is the Deputy Vice Chancellor designate, a friend, a deep friend of mine, always says, find a task that has your name in it, there where you are. Don't start thinking of driving Mercedes-Benzes and working as the accountant and working as the nurse. Right there, if it is collecting garbage in the environment, start collecting garbage. Except that you have to escape the Nairobi City Council, which loves garbage there where you are. Garbage everywhere. Anyway, do not hold your heart in your hands. That means that when you're working, I love that story that was in the newspaper or making its run in social media about the only guy who made KQ function was Philip Ndegwa. Who is late Philip Ndegwa, a recluse in life in many ways, not the normal type of guy you find in Kenya, but he transformed KQ. Why is this leadership? Okay, I'm not asking you go to that extent, but I'm asking you that don't do things so that you can be told thank you.
Extent of being what, a recluse?
except being a recluse. You know, a recluse is a person who doesn't really want any relationship or emotional attachment to the things and the people around him or her. Those are the recluses, okay? But in general, get a task that has your name on it. For those who are leaders today, remember just one thing. This is our family. This is our country. These are our most beautiful people around us, our most beautiful, precious gift. You don't know what we have been given here in Africa. You just have to leave Africa, go elsewhere in the world, and you just can't understand the beauty and paradise we have. But what we are doing is we are killing it in the altar of selfishness. It has been said. Anyway, go out there, work very hard. Be humble, start again, always. But when you're doing all these things, let me say one thing that is most difficult. Don't do it for your country, don't do it for your wife, don't do it for your children. Don't do it for society, do it for God. Because you may go doing it for all these people and really loving them so that they may love you back and give you in return. Then at the end of the day, you are just looking for selfish things.
Thank you very much. 10 seconds, closing remarks. Trophy, 10 seconds.
We all suffer from FOMO, fear of missing out. But the solution and the medicine for FOMO is to give back to the circle of life. Life does not owe you, but you owe life. Give it your best.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Dr. Juma Mkhwana?
I think I'll start it where Reverend left it. We all have this issue of me, I, and myself. And I think it is, the Bible says, I will trust you with bigger things if you can deliver on the small things that I've given you. If you can't do the small things, how would you do the bigger ones? This country and this continent is full of good potential, human resources, minerals, oil. What we are lacking are people that can harness this energy, that can put all these things together for the benefit of the people of this continent.
Thank you.
And I think that is my particular.
Right. Rev, 10 seconds.
Two things. One, every leader ought to remember you have that position so that you can create opportunities for other people. That is very central in my heart. Secondly, accept the face of your life, where you are, and do the very best you can. And indeed, God can use you in every phase of life and surprise you by the things He can achieve through you.
Right. Right, Dr. Lastly, 10 seconds.
In everything you do that you have before your eyes, do it with a lot of love. Put everything there, no matter what it is, but do it well.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We really thank you, our panelists this morning. What a way to end the show. Thank you so much. You can see also reactions on Twitter. I shall read them. It's not really reflecting on my TriCaster, so I'll just read it here. The debate today is really great. This is what Kim Irungu is saying. We as youth need to know how to balance the wheel of life, especially due to high unemployment rate in Kenya. Also, we have, this is Governor The Dreamer saying, ultimately leadership is not about glorious crowning acts. It's about keeping your team focused on a goal and motivated to do their best to achieve it, especially when the stakes are high and the consequences really matter. We have also Anthony. Anthony was giving us the Eisenhower matrix, helping in deciding what's important and urgent, and helps in delegating and prioritizing, or priority management, helping in achieving the most from the little time we have. We can't be able to see that because it's not reflecting, but if you can just look at the Eisenhower matrix, maybe also that will help you on how to balance your life. And Kenneth Kurugat saying, good morning. It requires proper planning, getting to work and working on goals ranging from family and general thriving. Avoiding stress and having passion in what we do is crucial. Self-awareness is key. I'm almost there, Mike. And we have also, I think that's it. There are a lot of them, but they're not coming up on my laptop. But that's it. Thank you very much. Remember, Jack Swindoll says this: wherever you are, be there. So wherever you'll be today, be there. Apply yourself. Thank you for your valued company.